me to either approve, reject or amend the application for an increase in the tariff for taxis or decide on a different tariff to that requested. And in doing that, I'm going to consider the objections which were submitted by the deadline of August the 4th. Public consultation. I understand that there are members of the public who want to take the opportunity of speaking on this matter for a maximum of 3 minutes. Thank you. Martin Walker, Councillor Kondaka and Michelle Kondaka. Michelle, would you like to make a start? Sorry, you're holding the camera.
I just have concerns about it being raised, the taxi prices being raised even more, because a lot of people who are on low incomes, who don't have cars and things, are totally reliant on taxis, and particularly people, elderly people, people who've got reduced mobility who can't use buses and such like, and it's just making them not be able to get about as much, which is very, very bad for their social lives and things. It's very bad for the town, because it means people aren't coming into town so regularly to do things. I mean, my opinion is that there are actually probably too many taxis, and because whenever I, by the bus station, train station, there's a whole queue of taxis just waiting things, and so there actually probably needs to be more control on the number of taxis licences that are given, rather than just keep hiking the fares. Because I mean, there have been occasions when we might have used a taxi, but it's just too expensive. So
thank you, Mrs. Kondaka. Martin, would you like to go next?
Do you want me to go next or last?
Would you go now, please?
Okay. Well, I've looked through the list of objections you kindly sent me through, and I don't know if the general public think we're a government body receiving subsidies, but does everyone understand we're a standalone companies? We stand and fall by our business. We're licensed by the Nuneaton Bedworth Borough Council to operate at a certain standard. And unlike the bus companies, we don't receive fuel subsidies, and when we get increased labour costs, or we keep costs anywhere, we're not allowed to put it up. We are the only industry that I know, or organisation, that cannot control its own affairs. We have to come to yourself and put an application in, which can take 5 or 6 months even to get to this stage, and it has took 5 or 6 months. We haven't had a rise since May 2012. We've had to absorb 4 minimum wage rises. The living wage is coming into it. We also employ people. We are fairly large employees in the Nuneaton Bedworth between us. And we pay PAYE, we pay into the tax system, we VAT registered. Does everybody understand that there's 20% VAT on every taxi fare? I don't know if you do. So if we did a job to keep it easy, say we took Carl as a paying passenger, private one, to Bedworth, it probably cost around about £12. But if you booked it and it ran the council account, still with £12, but the council could claim the £2 back, so it would only cost Carl £10. A lot of people realise that the VAT is actually making the taxi fares 20% higher. We got no control over that. Yourselves haven't, in fairness. It's a national government thing. It's pointed out we're the only transport services available late in the evenings. That's not our fault. We're not social services. We're not here to, because we work for the government. We provide a service. But if you ask a driver to work late at night or through the night, you can't just pay him the minimum wage. You've got to pay him a bit on top, a premium, like any people would expect. Any self-respecting person would expect to be paid more for working at night than in the day. And with companies like ourselves, if you want a car to come to you, you've got to phone the office. So we have to employ an operator. So, the fares to the public seem high, but when you work it out, they're not really. And if we're comparing taxi fares with others. But if we sat round in a meeting like this in Incley and they said, we can't get you a rise because Atherstone and Nuneaton ain't got one. Well, if you sit in Atherstone, you can't.
Thank you.
3 minutes already.
It is, and it's very hard to stop there. Thank you very much. Councillor Condarga.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing that struck me was how much more expensive taxes are in Nuneaton and Bedworth. And we do have historically far lower wages and far less money in our local economy. Yeah, the government stats say an average person in Nuneaton earns £400 a week. Yeah, obviously a lot of people earn a lot less. And the people who objected, yeah, a lot of them, it is a major issue as to whether they get someone to deliver food to them or whether they take a taxi or whatever. Really important we actually keep our taxi service going. One of the questions I asked, because I want to understand if you've really got a problem with a diminishing number of taxi drivers, is how many licensed taxi drivers we've got. And I asked Carl, it's about 600 and it's been about 600 for years. So if we really had a problem that actually it wasn't worth driving taxis, that number would have gone down. We have a lot of people who can choose where to take a licence out, whether it's Nuneaton or Coventry or whatever. Vast numbers of people from Coventry are taking licences out in Nuneaton. Everything is pointing to the fact we haven't got a problem with getting people to drive taxis at the current fares. It's interesting, the people who are pushing for higher fares are the proprietors like yourselves, not the drivers. I think the drivers realise a lot that there is a risk of actually having less and less trade the more and more you put fares up. We had this with the car parking charges. We've upped the car parking charges, and actually now we get less revenue and 7% less people using the car parks because the parking's gone up. We're destroying our town by gradually making it more expensive. And if you look at the town centre, it needs more life in it. I want taxi drivers to be busy. Taxi drivers are an integral part of not owning a car. Having a more sustainable lifestyle means that people should be using taxis more rather than having a full-time car. And I'd like there to be busier taxi drivers. And if you look at the Ryanair model, what they're doing is they're lowering the prices. If you want to get something busy, you don't put the prices up. Also, we've got the threat of Uber and all these things coming on, and these services are dreadful. I've asked people, they're dreadful services. But if you price yourself out the market, then that is what will happen. And I'm really glad that we have a regulated taxi service. We check drivers and they're going to have some training on child protection. It's a good service, and I actually think we should be encouraging people to use it rather than hiking the fares. And it's really worrying, reading some of those letters of objection, the impact that the fare rise will have. Well, just one last point. I did try and find out how much profit you or your firms make by looking at your accounts. It's really hard. Quite often, if you want to put something up, and quite a lot of housing developments want to have social housing cut, they actually present a set of accounts to decision makers to say, this is our profit, this is whatever. And I haven't seen any transparency as to where the totals are. You've moaned about wages, but obviously fuel costs have come down a lot. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Condarga. Right, we'll move on now to item 4. The types of objection that have been received are, to summarise very briefly, on page 8, and they are all attached in the appendices at the back. I have considered these objections, and I do have sympathy with people who find it difficult to afford to use taxis, but as has been pointed out, also in the submissions, taxi companies, taxi drivers are in the business to earn a living. So I therefore approve the increase as stated. What happens now is that the council will post on its website the dates by which these changes will be implemented, and this will be probably, the dates will be within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you.
So we can conclude the meeting. Thank you very much for
Thank you.